Welcome back, everybody, to the show. I hope you are doing well. I do apologize for Jaden. I mean, right? Maybe he should be the one apologizing. How dare you get sick? No, he is charging through the last couple of days. We've dealt with sickness. Producer Cole had a sickness of the head, not wanting to come in. No, no, he had a legitimate reason. And so I was trying to figure out how to do this by myself, and I realized I rely on y'all too much. So we're playing some catch up on stories that happened a little bit ago, but I do want to dive into this, which is in the wake of the heinous assassination that we're learning more and more about of prominent right-wing activist Charlie Kirk. Similar to other tragic, frightening, on-video moments that are of a political or political-ish nature, terror attacks or mass shootings or other acts of political violence, specifically assassinations, what is the inclination of the country? To look to the president. And I'll actually later in the show contrast how Trump has handled this to how, for example, Obama handled a different event. Now, I think you and I had a little bit of a suspicion that maybe Trump wasn't going to be the great unifier, but it's been really scary to see his reaction. Now, I'm going to play this clip for you. We'll look at a few different moments on other topics as well from this same interview, but I find it very important across the board, whoever it's coming from, calibrated for their level of consequence and influence, but not ignoring people who have less consequence and influence, calling out the inflamers, people who are using this moment, exploiting it, of different political ideologies to further a political interest. And that's why in past segments, I have called out, and I will in today's show, people on the left, people who would nominally align with me more on certain political principles, who are abandoning one of the most important principles, I think, that we have to hold, and are just abandoning their humanity in their response. And I do think that's important to call out. It is also important to contextualize the discussion and put extra emphasis on people in positions of authority. And we have seen powerful Democrats with unanimous opposition and disgust at what was a horrific murder in front of the world of a political activist. And then we look to the other side of powerful people. It's not that the online gross stuff coming to the left doesn't matter, we'll talk about it, but there is an extra level of power when it's the president of the United States, and he's inflaming as well. And that's what this clip represents. Let's watch.
What do we do about our country with that? Because we have radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy.
And so there's so much about that. And again, I do have more to play, but that is dangerous. And I'd call it, at an inflection point like this, a huge F up or mess up on his part in leadership. But I think it's intentional. And he sees a moment like this as yet another chance to mislead and divide. So why? I do credit actually Ainsley Earhart with asking what in a moment like this can feel like a tough question, which is, hey, let's also talk about the broader problem here. Because after specifically a right-wing figure is murdered, it is totally reasonable to take a second to stay on that individual instance. But immediately the political discussion became among prominent Republicans about how the only acts of political violence in America are coming from the left wing. And so now we've gone away from this tragedy and they're making false statements. So then we have to address them, right? Especially when it's the president of the United States. And he's apologizing for or erasing acts of right-wing political violence, which is getting us no closer. If you're like me and you actually, even when someone you opposed in every single way, you actually want to stop and prevent bloodshed like this, then why on earth, as we always talk about with a lot of issues, would you lie about the problem if you want to solve it? And that's what he's doing there. And by getting asked, again, to Ainsley Earhart's credit, something I rarely do, but she did say, hey, we also have a problem with right-wing political violence. It does statistically happen to be much more common. Doesn't take away from the tragedy of Charlie Kirk's murder, but it is a statistical truth. And so what are we going to do as Americans to address the whole problem and to prevent stuff like this in the future? If you really want to prevent families, children, like Charlie Kirk's children from losing their father, wives from losing their husband, friends from losing their friend, in any of the cases where this happens, then let's take a look at the full issue. And what does Trump say? Right-wing political violence doesn't really matter, which we knew. I mean, he pardoned people who did that. So, but even in his rhetoric, he's doubling down. The only problem we have is left-wing radicals. And there are instances, we just saw, we're learning a lot about the shooter, we'll see, but of violence targeted against the right-wing figure, that's real. And there's a very real problem with violence targeted at liberal figures. And so to ignore that means it's not him going, you know what, I don't really want to have this political discussion right now. Can we just focus on the tragedy of someone that I knew, Trump maybe would say his friend, and his murder? And that, I think, would be a heartbreak-induced, reasonable statement. But that's not what it was. It's, oh yeah, well, let's talk about the broader political of it all, but now let me lie about it. And so, because he chose to do that, let me just remind you, as we do keep watching, because I think extra emphasis has to be put on people who are in positions of power. And if you're a right-winger and you feel very discombobulated or disgraced or horrified, as I do, by some of the instances you're seeing online of random people who proclaim to be on the left making light of or justifying what on an individual level is horrifying, but also if we care at all about pursuing peace through peace and advocating and protecting our democracy through democracy, it's all the stuff we talked about when someone tried to kill Trump. The path to a stable, peaceful democratic process is through a peaceful democratic process, not through utilizing the very violent principles that we're supposed to be opposing and preventing. But if you're a right wing and you see that and you're horrified by it, it's making you feel like maybe all the people, maybe the Democratic Party, there's just never anyone a part of that or aligned with that. There's no option for productive debate. I don't know if this makes you feel better, but anyone who has like elected office and is real influential and powerful in the epicenter of power has not had the reaction you're seeing going viral because social media pushes out the most engaging stuff that is disgusting and is worthy to be called out, but it's not the same in the power structure. And so let's compare to see if Trump's claim is true there, that there's only a left-wing radical problem. We just witnessed that he's completely erasing, I think that erasure is disgusting, a Minnesota lawmaker, elected official, and her husband, Melissa Hortman, and her husband being murdered. You can see on screen here a guy in a mask who was a Trump supporter. Again, like how I hate that conspiracy theories are running wild and misinformation, some from people I used to respect on the left are going crazy about Kirk's assassin. The powerful people during the assassination of Melissa Hortman and her husband were running wild, acting like this wasn't a Trump supporter. It was triple confirmed that he was. And he went to the house of this beautiful, beautiful soul, murdered her and her husband for their political views, then went to John Hoffman's house, shot him and his wife. They luckily survived, the Hortmans. Did not Republican senator, not user 378 on Twitter, Mike Lee, Republican senator, said nightmare on Wall Street, like Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. And one of Melissa Hortman's friends had to confront him in the halls of Congress and say, you need to take this down. It is crazy. You're making fun of this. And then people like him and many others spread wild falsehoods. And the same reason I'm opposed to falsehoods being spread about Kirk's assassin or the killing itself, I was disgusted by this. And I wish that we all would be, whoever it impacts. And that's not happening. And the Republican Party and their elected officials are inflaming, and that's what Trump represented there. And so that's why I'm opposed to it. Wherever it pops up, calibrated for the level of influence the person has, I am horrified that people are exploiting a moment like this to further inflame and make more political violence more likely. And if you're going to go around erasing the memory of, and you can take this down, Jaden, but we just got this news too. A former Republican candidate for a state House seat in New Mexico was sentenced to 80 years in prison on Wednesday for orchestrating a politically motivated shooting spree against 4 Democratic officials. That was a former Republican candidate for state House. And so if you're going to erase those people's stories and ignore that when instances like that happened, a lot of not random people, but powerful people in the Republican Party were making light of it, making jokes about Tim Walz, spreading conspiracy theories, and characterize it as only a one-side problem, then you're not serious about the whole problem. And we should be serious about the whole problem. Whoever it's impacting. I don't know why I feel like I'm going crazy seeing some of the online reaction from the left and the right. We have to. Or we can just continue experiencing bloodshed and maybe it's me or you next. We have to figure out how to proceed in a more productive and peaceful way. And lying about the full problem, ignoring people's stories, inflaming is not the path to that. Next moment from the same interview, you had Trump announcing that the shooter had been caught.
Always subject to be corrected, but I'm just giving you, based on what I'm hearing, they'll give you a much more active. I just heard about it 5 minutes before I walked in. As I'm walking in, they said, looking real good. They have the person that they wanted. So you have breaking news, don't you? Huh?
Thank you.
You always have breaking news, Ainsley. Sean's going to be very disappointed that we're not doing it on his show.
He'll be very thankful and appreciative of the police officers that got this guy.
They did a great job.
It's just so uncomfortable. Oh, I bet Sean would have wanted this news on his show. What? No. I don't even think Sean Hannity's going to be that concerned with that after something like this, as Ainsley Earhart had to uncomfortably correct Trump. And I do just want to show you here, I was going to show this earlier, but Erica Kirk had this to say.
And I talked to her and she said, "Mommy, I missed you." I said, "I miss you too, baby." She goes, "Where's Daddy?" What do you tell a 3-year-old? She's 3. I said, "Baby, Daddy loves you so much. Don't you worry. He's on a work trip with Jesus, so he can afford your blueberry budget."
So my heart, when I hear something like that, is so disconnected from the politics and is genuinely, this isn't like this is a good thing. Genuinely, as I'm kind of struggling to understand our country right now and its collective reaction with different, again, degrees of influence and who's doing what. And it's not a perfect both sidesism, but just in general, a lot of the online, maybe it's a lot of Russian bots too stoking the stuff, but the online reaction in many ways has been just so disconcerting. And to know that people in different places on the spectrum seeing this and being like, all right, now we're tripling down on whatever the political goal is. It is sad. It really is. And as happens after, and I do want to address, some people have said, the type of reactions I'm saying are maybe you have the overt mockery or celebration even. And I think that sane people go, on a human front, that's disgusting, and on a general, quote unquote, strategic, how do we get to a better place in America? Violence is just going to promote more violence, abandoning your principles of being against violence for the sake of opposing people you think are for violence. That doesn't make any sense. But a reaction I've heard a lot as well, Kirk didn't care, or some of the MAGA figures grieving didn't care when this mass shooting happened. They didn't want to do anything on a policy front. Or they didn't care about the Democrats that I just referenced to you, or when Shapiro's house was lit on fire trying to kill him and his family. They didn't care about that, so why should we care about this? And I'll just keep saying, because I think there's a lot of moral confusion right now that's sad. If you agree, and I do, whenever Don Jr. posts the photo after Paul Pelosi gets his head smashed in, nearly dies, this is my Halloween costume and it's underwear and a hammer, or other examples of mockery or not caring, and you go, that's terrible, or not wanting to implement solutions to gun violence problems after a mass casualty event, and we look at MAGA and their leaders and we say that's terrible, and we're opposed to that you would not have a more empathetic reaction. Why on earth, if that's your feeling, which it is mine when they react that way, would we then not care? Why on earth then would we mirror the behavior that we see as terrible in other acts of violence? Why wouldn't we connect with the humanity there that you just witnessed and ourselves start talking about what are the solutions? And I can tell you the solutions are not cheers. And so if you can't find it in your heart viscerally, strange, but if the political debate has so clouded that humanity, and I get that everything has become very political, then politically, how do you see yourself as advocating for the principles we talk about if you're going to do the very thing that we hate when they do it? Which is, number one, not caring about solutions after something terrible, and number two, not having empathy, which is the very thing we talk about them being bad for. So don't do the exact same thing. Otherwise, what really is it that you're standing for? On to a different topic from the same interview. Trump was asked about Russia flying drones into Polish airspace and had sort of a reaction.
And we're going to fix this system.
What are you going to do about President Putin? Because we just saw these drones in Poland.
Yeah, well,
more sanctions.
I'm not going to defend anybody, but the Poland's, they were actually knocked down and they fell into an area. But he shouldn't be close to Poland anyway.
Right.
So I solved, as you know, 7 wars.
Yeah. So they weren't knocked. It wasn't like they were flying Ukrainian airspace and then they got shot and they fell down into Poland. They flew intentionally into Polish airspace, from all the evidence we have at this point in time. And they had to be shot down because they were in Polish airspace. So they weren't shot down into, they were in Polish airspace. And then NATO fighter jets, right, had to shoot them down. He's just, again, lying in the interest of a Russian narrative, which is frightening. He also, you heard at the end there, he started doing the, I've solved every war ever. Did you hear? World War II, that was me, wow. And a little problem when he started trying to list specifics popped up.
Azerbaijan and Albania, it was going on for many, many years.
To which Albania said, what? Armenia is what he's thinking of. Azerbaijan and Albania. He said the wrong country. Oof. Then he starts bragging, saying we have the best economy ever. And hold, because you're going to go, Luke, we don't need to see this. We get that he says that, despite the facts. But there's something really interesting about this. I'll show you.
Drop the interest rates, then he should have dropped. But he's a year late. And despite that, we have the best economy we've ever had. We have the best stock market we've ever had. In other words, what we've created is so strong. We have $17 trillion going to be invested in this country.
So that's obviously false, and we've gone through the specifics, but interesting. He would say we have the best economy, and inherent in that is that he done it. It's his. Okay, let's listen to Howard Lutnick.
This is the same day or a day apart.
Economic bricks
hiring, inflation, how people feel are piling up on the wrong side of the scale. Inflation.
Oh, I think they're piling up on the right side, actually.
Wait, you want inflation in August ticking up to 4.3%, the highest since 21? Manufacturing activity shrank in August, 6 months running, unemployed workers exceeding job openings. If Biden had numbers like that, you'd be on Fox saying, what's going on?
So the economy that Donald Trump owns starts at the end of this year. You can't
It doesn't work that way.
Well, wait.
January 20th.
Okay, wait. Howard starts getting silly and goofy, but Lutnick, at the same exact time Trump is saying we have the best economy ever, but they're just lying to you about the numbers. Lutnick is saying, no, this is still Biden's economy. So which one is it? Is it Trump's economy and it's good, or is it Biden's economy and it's bad?
Say one.
Build factories and get permits and begin in an hour. You just can't. And the scale by which these companies are committed to building factories in America,
We know, $100 trillion. We got it.
is unprecedented. So the jobs are coming, the factories are coming. We know the cavalry is coming. You know it. You can hear the thunder of the hooves coming. And anybody who worries today is...
The thunder of the hooves are coming. Are the thunder of the hooves in the room with us, Howard? They're coming so hard. And the interesting part is the horses are coming. Is he posted, in July, he said the Trump economy has officially arrived. But I thought you said it starts at the end of the year. We're all over the place. So they'll keep doing that and playing that game as long as they possibly can.